everybody, and welcome to another exciting, fun-filled, expeditious episode of Radio Rama, where, as the name implies, I show you how to work on radios and stereos and record players and a lot of other stuff that runs on glowing vacuum tubes from the 1930s through the 1960s or thereabouts. And we're on the tail end of that era here because we have this 1960-61 Blaupunkt Florenz stereo. And what that means as far as stereo, I don't know. It says FM stereo. I'm guessing the pickup is probably in stereo too. See, it says pickup stereo, FM stereo. But I'll bet you anything you have to have an adapter. Being this late, I'm going to guess that a lot of the electrolytics might be okay in this thing. It might just be a simple thing of looking for any actual paper capacitors and replacing those. And I might need to, test the original electrolytics. If they're easy to get at, I might replace them. Blaupunkt is like my least favorite German brand. A lot of people refuse to work on German radios because the perception is that they're more difficult to work on, and that can be true. I find it's like any other thing where some brands are worse than others. I feel like Grundigs are okay. A lot of Telefunks are okay to work on. I don't have a problem with those. You start getting into Saba and Blaupunkt especially, and some of their designs are impossible. As in the stuff's built in layers, like where they built one layer and soldered everything on and built another layer on top of it, and you can't get to the stuff underneath because you'd have to unsolder everything. That kind of crap where sometimes you just throw up your arms and like, do I really want to do that? And I'm a volunteer, and that's usually when I say someone else can handle it. Or if it works, if it's new enough and it's like, okay, well, those caps are probably okay. So let's see if it works. Being this new, I wouldn't be surprised if it still does. New being the operative word. To me, anything made past the 50s is new in my book. And also because you get into that era and a lot of components have just gotten to the point where they're a lot better. The chemistry, the construction, and everything, you start getting into plastic films with capacitors. Everything's just so much more reliable, and also not enough time has elapsed for things to have gone bad as quickly. So oftentimes stuff from this era just works fine. So let's try it out anyway. And to do so, I'm going to bring it up on my Variac with a meter. Just put it down the lowest setting at 0, and let's bring it up. Let me get this out of the way so you can... Come on now. Alright, here we go. Alright, it's drawing a little bit. That's alright. And you see how that needle's kind of like falling down as I raise it up. That means the capacitors are charging and discharging a little bit. We're about 70% already. And that's really about where I want it. It's really not drawing that much, so I feel pretty confident that nothing horrible is wrong. You would find out pretty shortly if there was something horrible. And so all right, well, that sounds like static.
We don't know who bent it actually, but
It says, except for the statue of Mary. Locals hailed it as a miracle.
Our miracles.
Yeah, there's no FM stereo.
Which lasted until the early 2000s. He's also a former top official in the Roman...
We've got some... Where's the stinking indicator for this thing?
It really
There it is.
well with our culture.
Alright, so there's the indicator. It's just really hard to see. I hope there's more than one pilot light, because maybe it's just because it's bright outside.
Petrol engineer.
don't cry, it's no man, don't leave me. This is Alice, baby. They play the music I love. It puts me in a good mood. Love here.
hearing them go back and forth in the morning.
All right, that's AM.
Need to be in the 4 range to be like real football fan.
I just think it's
Well, the pilot light just went out.
to be in the 4 range. You know, I would like to, but just looking at the schedule, I'm like,
Could be a loose connection. A lot of those European sets, they use screw-in bulbs versus a spring-loaded bayonet, so they will come loose. It works. Now, granted, it's a little sticky and gummy, but that's all right. It doesn't sound, in my opinion, absolutely amazing. This feels solid. I see 2 little speakers here and some speakers on the side, so it's kind of like maybe it just doesn't have very big speakers, which I guess that's a choice. It could also be that maybe the controls are a little bit dirty and maybe some of the capacitors that are associated with the tone controls are out, but I don't know. Let's take a look inside. Now, here's the back of it. I'm just curious what's in it. Type 21353. I wonder if that's the model. Oh, here we go. See, here's the input. Multiplex outlet. This is the input for the right and left channels. Wait a minute. No, that's not. This is input in general for running audio. This is the multiplex outlet. So if you had the multiplex, you would have plugged it in there and that would give you your stereo. And there's connections for speakers, right and left channel, external speakers, internal and external speakers. And let's look at the tube lineup. Now we have EL84, but there's only one. EABC 80, EF89, ECH 81, ECL 86, and ECC 85 are all related to IF and RF and not output, I don't think. But this doesn't make any sense. How are they getting stereo out of this? And I'm assuming that's the power transformer. EM87 is an I tube. This is weird. They've probably done some weird business to make this work. Because how could you have a right and left channel output? And I'm also wondering if, I don't know, let's take the back off. I'm curious to see what I'm going to find in here. Well, here is the innards. They are not very big speakers. This is my hand for reference. So, you know, you're not going to get a huge amount of bass out of this, but that's all right. You know, some people don't like a ton of bass. I'm not one of those people. I love bass. Now here's our single-ended output here. I'm saying single-ended because see, here we have, that is probably the output transformer because we've got this coming down. It's hard to tell where that's going, but I can't help but think that's got to be the output transformer. Maybe there's one underneath. If I see another one under here, then maybe, I don't know. Here's the thing. I am a creative director, and as much as I wish that I was an engineering-brained type of person, I'm not. So someone else is probably sitting there with their head in their hands being like, you idiot, this is how it works. But anyway, there's also something I'm wondering about. It does say that you need a multiplex adapter, and that is not that uncommon for this area. You get into the late 50s, early 60s. This stuff was expensive, and so you could opt to upgrade your system with a multiplex adapter. And sometimes they would come in such a way where you could attach them somewhere in the cabinet or on the chassis somewhere. Some of my Sabas have that. And it says something that is interesting here, which makes me think they're kind of fibbing a little bit. It says the best stereo effect is obtained when adjusting both the channels to equal volumes. Now, are they saying effect because they've made it sound like stereo and it's really not? Or is stereo effect meaning, yes, that's true stereo? It says record playback. Connections for a changer are described on page 9. For stereo record reproduction, the pickup stereo button should be pressed and the records put in the usual way. For this, the speed control must be correctly set and the pickup head turned to its correct position. You can tell like this was really roughly translated from German into English. It's very staccato sounding. And I'm looking around in here, and what I see is, like, for example, this. If you didn't know any better, you'd think, well, that's a paper cap, and it's not. It's hard to see the end of it, but it's clear plastic. That's not a paper cap. That is a plastic film cap. There's probably nothing wrong with it. This thing is very dusty, and even though it's working fine, it does need to come out. And this is when you usually need to observe how your speakers are connected in these things, because oftentimes they're not plugged in, which is kind of infuriating sometimes, but they are instead wired in. Now it looks like what they've done here is they've maybe wrapped a lot of wire, I guess because they figured you could unfurl that and then pull it out. But I don't want to do that. I want to have full access to this, so I'm going to probably just nip it. I usually leave just a little bit of the color wire so I know which went where, which is kind of important if this is actually stereo. And then we will pull the chassis. Oftentimes, all you need to do is you disconnect the speakers, and then you unscrew the bolts from the bottom, and the whole chassis will come out backwards. And you got to be careful when you pull it out, because if this is glass in the front, I don't think it is. I think it's plastic. Let me see. I think it's plastic, but be careful anyway when you pull it out. Sometimes the glass can get stuck and you can crack it. And also, when you unloosen these, oftentimes the rubber that they sit on will have solidified, or otherwise it acts like a glue. I'll show you what I mean when I try to get it loose. Oh, I removed all the screws and stuff. There were not many, 4. And as I thought, this will not come out very easily, so I've been prying up. Sometimes you have to really yank on it too. Alright, I think that side's loose. Alright. Just gotta be gentle. And then it'll come out. And unfortunately, I'm so lazy. I've been doing this show for years, and I need to get one of those fancy things that people can wear when they're filming. Lindy's been saying, maybe you should get one of those what are they called? GoPros, because they're little and you can mount them onto things. That's a thought. Maybe I should do that for the new year. So anyways, you can see that's how you get this thing loose. So let's pull it out of there. And I think before I do anything, I'm going to take it outside because it's sunny out there, and get out the leaf blower and blow all the dust off. Alright, so I got my leaf blower, and what I start off doing is just I brush it with a paintbrush real gently, like a big soft paintbrush, just to knock the loose dust off. And be careful when you get around anything that's real delicate, because you don't want to break anything. And then just go in, because I want to loosen this stuff up, because a leaf blower, you know, it'll dislodge most of it, but not all of it. Plus I want to see how clean I can get it before I apply the leaf blower, because the leaf blower can sometimes do things you don't want it to do, like remove labels, even though I don't think that's really a problem here. Because again, this thing is pretty new. We're using PC boards here. I don't think this is going to be as bad as some of the other Blaupunkts I've worked on. Alright, so let's get the leaf blower. See how much nicer that looks. Looks like there's some down in here. I might. That's glass, so I need to be careful about that. I think I might just take the glass out if it's not too hard, because I want to clean behind there too. But you see I didn't get all the dust. You can tell where I didn't kind of like go over it first with the paintbrush. It didn't really dislodge itself completely with the leaf blower. Now, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. In fact, some people would think what I'm doing is kind of stupid. Maybe it is, but... Well, I need to get my smaller paintbrush. This guy is full of dust bunnies too, so let's get it. Oh, looky here. Huh. Oh, interesting. These are supposed to be glued down, and whatever glue they've used is messed up. Well, that's good and bad. That means I can take those out and clean them a lot easier. But that means when I stick them back in there, they have to be exactly where they need to be. I guess maybe this is... Okay, they've got little ends here, so you know how to stop. All right, never mind. That'll be easy. Small potatoes. So I'm gonna maybe get a smaller paintbrush and get some more detailed done stuff here. Maybe I can even get a brush down in here. And then I'll bring it back inside and we'll take a look at the electronics up close and personal. Okay, so it came back so clean it looks brand new. Kind of makes me wonder how many hours it's actually had. And it looks like since there's nothing sticking out of the back, I can flip it over so that we can take a look underneath. All right, let me do this carefully. Oh boy. Yeah, I can tell this is what I dislike about Blaupunkts, which is I'm going to bet that some of the components that are mounted to that board are covered by this board. So if you have to access anything from underneath, good luck. Anyway, I'm hoping maybe there's nothing that needs to be replaced. As I can see, it looks like these are all plastic film caps. I don't know about these guys, but I'm going to bet they're probably okay. Again, this is so new compared to most of what I work on. What I really want to do is test the electrolytics. And where are those? Here they are. Looks like we've got two values inside. There's 100, I'm not sure if you can see that, 100 and 100 microfarads. 350 volts. This is what it comes down to. It'd probably take me just as long to test this guy and reform it as it would to just install new electrolytics, and it's not hard. Like, it's all chassis ground. We're not talking about a massive quantity of leads here. There's like, looks like four total, maybe. Yeah, and there's probably a little bit of wiggle room with some of these cables. I could probably pull them in a little bit. Yeah, I feel like this has so little use on it. Like, everything is really clean. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to clip one of these, and then I'm going to connect my cap checker and see if it's good or it needs reforming. All right, it's time for cap checking time. So what you got to do is you have to disconnect the capacitor, or it won't count, because what'll happen is that the capacitor checker will measure other components in that circuit. So you got to isolate it. Be careful with these guys. They are invaluable. They're also expensive because they don't make them anymore, and they're dangerous. These do put out serious voltage, because you need serious voltage in order to truly test a high voltage capacitor and a tube radio. All right, so we know that the voltage is over 60 volts. So I'm going to set that to 60 to 600 volts. These are for electrolytics. And then we're going to slowly bring up the current, or the voltage rather. Right now we're at nothing. All right, and you want to bring this up slowly. You don't want to just like whap it on, because the capacitor is starting to build the charge. Usually do this with, you know, one hand on the knob and one hand on the button. But You can see how that's rising. We want to get to its maximum operating voltage, which I believe, as I remembered, it said it operated at 350 volts is the max. It probably operates more at 250 or even less. Okay, that's weird. Why is the needle sticking like that? Let me see. Maybe it's just because it's at a... Like I said, you need like 2 hands to do this. All right, you get it. And I'm actually going to stop filming because I just feel like I don't want to damage stuff for the sake of trying to demonstrate. All right, so now it is actually set to... That's reading a little bit high, maybe. I'm not sure how accurate the meter is on this. That's why I got out my multimeter here, so I can confirm what voltage is actually on it. But what we want is to see this needle get closer to 0. Because if it continues to stay up in that direction, that means it's got leakage. And so that means the capacitor is potentially bad, which is aggravating, but we'll see. So it can take sometimes, you know, upwards of half an hour for these old capacitors to reform. Well, like I said, these things can take a while. And so this has been sitting there for about 10 minutes. And that is about as good as you can get on an electrolytic. That's almost too good. Let me see something here. Nope, it's definitely... Dang, why can I not focus this camera? It's the glare or something. I'm sorry, guys. Anyway, it's measuring good. So I really can't complain about that. Makes me think that maybe the other one is okay too. Huh. It's good. All right, there's something really important about these guys. You can make sure and discharge before you touch anything, because that capacitor is now built up a charge. And so you want to discharge it. And also what I do is I will take a screwdriver or whatever and make sure and short out the positive lead to ground. In fact, I'll just go ahead and do that with this alligator clip. Okay, I guess it discharged properly. You don't want to get a little bit of a surprise. You know, it's easy enough just to... I'll just test the other one, so let me do that. I'll just solder these back on and then I'll test the other one. Alright, I'm testing the second one, and once again you can see like it's initially got a little bit of some resistance going on, which would suggest it's maybe leaky. But again, I just started testing it, so you may need to wait up to 30-40 minutes. And it's easy just to sit here, even though I could have replaced both of them by now, but that's not the point. The point is that I can let a machine do it instead. But on the other hand, if this does not go much further down, then I'm going to have to replace it. And if I'm going to replace that one, I'll just replace the other one too, which is a pain, but whatever. What else am I going to do? It's a lazy afternoon right before Christmas, and I'm working on radios. Okay, and just like the other one, it took about 20 minutes. Can't ask for better. That's perfect. So I'm gonna again like discharge, reconnect, and that electrolytic capacitor, both of them are fine. I'm gonna split one of these weird tubular caps open to see if it's paper or film. If it's film, like plastic film, I'm not gonna replace any of those either. I'm just not sure. I don't recall seeing these before. I'll split one of these metal container caps open. That looks suspiciously like paper. And I'll unfurl it a little bit to see. Maybe there's just a paper coating on the outside, but I think those are paper caps. And if that's the case, that's not the end of the world. There's not a huge amount in this thing. There's, well, here's the thing. Getting to these is going to be all kinds of fun. I mean, this is all down the side here. I'm tempted to test some of these too. If those are okay, I sure would rather not replace them, but if they're paper, then you almost have to, because the paper disintegrates and then it becomes leaky. Well, Well, it looks can be deceiving. After looking at this real carefully, what it reminds me of is there's some late 50s, early 60s Sprague capacitors that are kind of like this hybrid plastic and paper material, and they're actually fine. And I think that's what the case is with this. It definitely has a plastic element to it, so it's not paper. It's not pure paper. I'm gonna bet they're perfectly fine. If these are, I should have tested that one just as a reference, but now all the rest of them are difficult to get at. Let me see if there's any up top or something. You know what? I'm gonna test one of these in the volume or tone control circuit, and if that test's okay, that might give me a reference to how good the rest of these might be, because I think these are okay. I'm pretty certain of it. All right, to do paper caps, well, not paper caps, I just call all caps that are not electrolytics paper caps. For your non-polarized capacitors, you got to use another function on the TO5. And what you want to do is, hook it up. You don't want to use this side, that's for the electrolytics, but we want to put this on our scale that's correct, 0.001 to 0.5 microfarads. And what we want to do is operate this till we want max open on that eye. And I know it's hard to see because it's sunny out here, but you can see how it opens and closes. And this is supposed to be basically a 0.15 rated capacitor, and it's measuring not quite 0.02, so I think that's well within reason. There's nothing wrong with that capacitor. I'd say it's good. I think that kind of confirms my belief that those are actually plastic film, or maybe a hybrid plastic and paper film capacitor. So I think those are okay. I mean, the fact that the radio sounded perfectly fine. Now, on the other hand, is there any other paper capacitors on this? That's clear. That's plastic film. And it's also clear that's plastic film. We've got some little electrolytics in here, but these are low voltage, so I'm not too concerned about those either. Again, you get into a certain era and this stuff just becomes so much improved. I mean, it doesn't matter what or where it came from. Like a lot of the American sets, you get into the 60s, super reliable. Again, because the chemistry and everything had improved. So again, before you do anything, make sure and just charge everything, because you will get zapped. And also make sure and short your cap, because it'll be charged. Okay, well, now that we've kind of gotten that sorted out, I want to take this glass off, because I want to clean behind it. And to do that, you need to remove, there's probably some set screws. Yeah, the big knobs have 2, the little ones have 1. We'll clean those knobs too. And it looks like you can remove the dial glass just by kind of pulling that clip back. That's kind of ingenious. I like that. At least something's easy to work on this thing. And these, I assume, just pull right off. I think you got to be careful too. There's usually a little piece of spring steel that goes on the back, and if you pull it off quickly, sometimes those will pop off and like land in your garage, never to be found again. So just be aware of that. I can't believe there's just one dial light in here. For this huge radio, there's just one dial light. It's unusual. You'd think the Germans would be like, we have to make sure people see perfectly, so we'll put more than one. But there's not. Anyway, I hope I'm not offending Germans. I'm being really rude. I'm sorry. I love these radios, but sometimes they can be a pain, and I think that's what the challenge is. Let me show you a perfect example of things that this particular brand likes to do that I find incredibly irrational. So I thought, well, I'll pull the knobs off so that I can pull the glass off. That should be easy, right? Yeah, you would think. But what they've done here is there was a snap ring here holding this on, and I thought, well, that's fine. I'll pull that snap ring off and that'll come off. And then I started pulling it and it kept on coming. And what it is, this is a solid piece of plastic. The only thing I can figure is that somehow you were supposed to have this wound and install the glass at the same time while somehow manipulating that string. That is just an incredibly stupid design. Like, if you needed to get in here, granted, maybe you'll never need to get in here. Maybe that's what they thought. You're screwed. Like, you're totally screwed. I mean, I guess you wouldn't be totally screwed. You would have to, like, spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to, like, carefully keep that wound to put it back in. I've done that before, but I'm not going to do it for this. It's not worth it just because I want to clean it up behind a little bit when no one else will really notice. I'll try to get a small paintbrush back there to see if I can clean up a little bit more, but otherwise, I'll clean the knobs, and I'm not taking that off. No way. Welcome to day 2, working on the Blaupunkt. And today what I'm going to do is add an additional audio input feature. It already has a right and left channel input here for RCAs. But what I'm going to do is, if someone gets this, maybe they'll want to hook up more than just a mobile device. Maybe they'll want to actually hook up a record player. So I'll leave those like that. But I'm also going to run this 3.5mm jack. This hole is already here, so I just put this rubber grommet in. So I'll run that through and tie a knot in it. And those will tie in to those connections too. So you'll have this flexibility to listen to any number of different types of media with this device. Anyway, I'll run that through, and then I'm going to turn my attention to the cabinet. Meanwhile, what I did, and I forgot to film, but even though you don't need to know how to do this probably because it's obvious, this was all dirty. There was a bunch of dirt that was in the little nooks and crannies here, so I took a toothbrush and some mild detergent and cleaned all that up so that looks all nice and clean. I think the fact that this thing is nearly perfect looking is going to be a major selling point for it. So like I said, I'll run this through, tie a knot, and then solder it to the same connections as those right and left channel connections. Alright, well here we go. I have the audio input running through the little hole here. Goodness gracious, sorry about that folks. I had some good holiday food over the Christmas break. No wonder my channel doesn't get that many views, because clearly I imagine that I'm still 12 years old or something like that. Sorry. Anyway, now that we've got all of the electronic kind of sorted out, I'm going to clean up the cabinet, which is sitting over there in the floor. Alright, now it's time to work on the cabinet. One thing I noticed is that there's kind of a chunk missing here. This is kind of a dark finish, so I'm going to use this teak color to kind of cover that up a little bit so it's not so obvious. I mean, it's not going to look amazing, but most of the time people are just going to look at it like that anyway. But I'd rather it not be as noticeable, so I'll do that. As far as this goes, this finish is more like a plastic. It's like they dipped the thing in plastic, and so there's less. I wouldn't use Novus or any sort of wood product on this. I'm going to use a plastic polish. And the unfortunate thing is that when you put it on that thick and it gets exposed to the sun, it'll start cracking like that once it ages. So it's kind of unfortunate that a lot of the German manufacturers chose to do that, because forget refinishing it. I mean, I don't know. So let me kind of touch that up, and then we'll get out the plastic polish and maybe some mild detergent to clean up some of the front here. Alright, well, the next thing I'm going to do is use my buffing attachment. And this product that I've been using for years, called Novus. I use Novus number 2 on everything. I kind of cleaned up the cabinet a little bit, and it's pretty clean. But I just want to put a fine polish on the top of it, because that's where people put their crap. They put their keys and their wallet and whatever on top of it, and it gets all scratched up.
You knew just what I was there for. You heard me sing a prayer for someone I really would care for. Then suddenly there appeared before me the only one my arms could ever hold.
Okay, my honest assessment is that it has a pleasant sound. If you're a bass fiend like me, this is probably not the radio for you, but it sounds pleasant. Like this would be a nice, background radio in your living room or something. It's just the bass is
Without a dream in my mind,
not quite all the way there.
without a love of my own. Blue, 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 blue. You saw me standing on
Anyway, like I said, there's everyone else out there has different tastes. Let's try the.
We let people in hides and start to experience the migration in person. And I do anticipate that.
There's FM.
You were to go check out this exhibit.
Tan diferente como cada persona. La Ford Explorer viene con 400 caballos de fuerza disponible y 3 filas de asientos para que ahora todos disfruten de la aventura.
I mean,
Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again. You know, all the play.
Best place to find lovers at the bar is where I go. Me and my friends at the table doing shots, tripping fast and then we talk slow. Come until you kiss my lips and you say in my heart the fire's burning.
Oh boy. All right, so that's FM. There's AM.
Team here at the Patrick Madrid Show and all of us at Relevant Radio. Success? The same thing 3 times? Or is it...
All right, so it works well, and I think that more or less concludes this episode of Radiorama. Thanks so much for watching. Until the next time a radio like this or some other radio comes across my workbench, I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.